Welcome back to the MMA Museum podcast. I'm your host, Miguel Dorati, and we are into episode 24. A little bit of a different spin, but equally historic here at the MMA Museum. We have Arias Garcia Jr. Arias is the promoter of the Cage Fury Fighting Championships, show out of the Northeast that's now, run over 100 something shows. And I'm looking back, it goes back to 2006. So I think it's time that we do some history, man. How are you?
Good, buddy. Thank you for having me, Go. Thank you.
Awesome. So let's take this back to 2006. Obviously, I knew you back then, and you had been from the Jersey area. You were working on and being involved in a lot of the shows over there, doing the little of the dirty work. Well,
Yeah.
but at some point in 2006, the Cage Fury Fighting Championships came out, and you didn't start out like in bars or anything like that. You started out with a quality show and being back pretty good. How did all that come about? The CFFC founding.
Yeah, so I think when CFFC started in 2006, I wasn't the position that I have now. I think at that point in time I was still kind of, freelancing, probably, doing stuff for you and at ADC Combat and MMA Weekly. So I attended the very first show in Atlantic City. I think they did it at the Boardwalk Hall, one of those types of room, and they had really good, venues. And I met Felix Martinez, the owner at the time, and Felix and I had gotten like, really nice and cordial with each other. We see each other at events, and they had a good run. And then I think in 2000, maybe a year or two later, they had five events, CFFC 5 and then CFFC 6. Obviously, CFFC 5 was Mercer versus Kimbo, which I was a judge at, because it was an exhibition fight and they couldn't use commission judges. So Felix asked me out of the recommendation of Nick Lembo, and Jim Genia was the other judge. So after that fight, they were really successful. And then CFFC 6, they were supposed to do Tank versus Kimbo. Unfortunately, I think Felix, with the don't know the full story, but with pay-per-view numbers and the money they had to put out, they obviously just couldn't afford it to put that show on, and the company went under. And then Rob Haydack, who is the current owner, took over. I think bought the company for like $1 or something, and then Felix was kind of put together a dinner, and I was asked to attend, and I attended. I met Rob for the first time, and this is 2010 now.
Okay.
I met Rob in 2010, and he asked me what I wanted to do, and I always liked what you did, Miguel, back in the day for Bodog Euphoria MFC. I was like, you know what, I can be a matchmaker. It'll be super easy. If Miguel can do it, anybody can do it.
I agree.
And I learned rather quickly how hard the matchmaking position is. So 2010, we took over at CFFC 6, and now actually this Friday, I'm not going to be able to attend, but this Friday we're doing CFFC 125, I think, in North Dakota.
Wow. Yeah.
I've been a part of 119 shows with the company, and it's been super rewarding, super stressful, and I'm just still glad to be a part of it almost 13 years later.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and thank you for filling me in on the full history there. So you showed up early, and you were already judging for the big Kimbo Ray Mercer fight. Let's talk about that a little bit before we get to your
Yeah.
run there. So, who's the brainchild behind this fight? Like, how did you watch the CFFC put that together? Who was matchmaking before you? Because Mercer, he fought Tim Sylvia. He was a rugged guy too. Mercer was a gold medalist, but
Yeah.
Mercer was also not a guy that you wanted. If you were in a trench in ugly World War I warfare, you might want Ray Mercer on your side. You know what I mean? He's a
Yeah.
dog. And Kimbo,
Yeah.
obviously, with all that street cred, but that's a ballsy fight. Who's doing the work there?
I think you probably know Miguel. His last name is escaping me, but it was Gary. He I can't remember his last name, but Gary was did a couple shows back in the day. We're talking about the early to mid 2000s in the Northeast. So he put that fight together. Felix was paying people paying fighters back then a really good purse. So, you had to, in order to get like a name like Ray Mercer. I think this was before he fought Tim Sylvia.
Okay.
So to get Ray Mercer to step into an MMA ring and, to have the boardwalk call, he was paying people good money. But I think it was a collaboration of both Felix Martinez, the owner of the time, and Gary Marino, the matchmaker, who
Okay.
I believe he's been on the or I know he's been selling some memorabilia, because I know he's got a pretty good collection too.
That's good to know. Good to know. Mental note
Yeah,
made. So, where was the fight with Ray Mercer and Kimbo? How did all like the bill? You said it was in Boardwalk Hall, or where?
it
Or
was
where
at the it was at the Boardwalk Hall. It wasn't that in the big arena that they use in the Boardwalk Hall, but the Boardwalk Hall has multiple. Like there's like another arena, and they used a smaller, I believe, the smaller arena, but the crowd. I went. I was there. I've been to almost every CFFC show from number one. And it was the crowd was electric. I mean, Felix was smart and Gary was smart. They had a good combination of local talent. Dante Rivera, the Frankie Eggers, the Jim Millers. At the time that were competing, and when you have I don't know how many tickets Kimbo sold, but I'm pretty sold a little bit, just because back in the day he was all the rave about could he actually fight, could bare knuckle backyard. So it was a great turnout. Seeing Kimbo, RIP, close and personal, was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, he at that point he was, you know, getting to the big stuff or going to get to the big stuff in MMA. He hadn't really done that yet, but eventually, how did it feel? And you've done this with some of your own guys later, but how did it feel when you turned on the TV shortly after that and saw him fighting, Ken Shamrock, and then Seth Petroselli and that disaster and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome because no matter like what you think of Kimbo, he's a piece of MMA history, and for us, to Cage Fury to have his first foray, albeit an exhibition match, start out with Cage Fury will forever be linked with him. So it's cool, and to later see how well he did in the Ultimate Fighter, and he was a really good guy. It's obviously passed away too early, but yeah, it's really uh, a sense of pride when you see someone like that make it to a level that he did, in the stardom that he did. So yeah, it's like a little piece of history that no one can take away.
Now you didn't do the paperwork with him and stuff like that, but all stories about him are that he was very easy to deal with, and he was a total professional in every way. Once you got there, did you get that impression?
Absolutely, super nice guy. I think I only met him. I think I met him the night before at the weigh-ins, and then actually fight night. And super nice guy. Like I know, like at that time he was billed and promoted to be this tough guy, from the hood, but super nice guy. His team was a little erratic, but he was like super nice and very cordial with the fans, and he's a really good guy.
Now, so CFFC 6 comes along, you're the matchmaker, and you take over here. What was the learning experience there? You first take people through your process, because you would have had to go to the Jersey offices of the Boxing Commission and get your license to matchmake and things like that. I don't know if they made you do it. People are, I'm sure they made you do it. People don't know, but you have to submit like your past tax forms and things like that in order to
Yeah,
get approved and stuff.
yeah. So like for those that don't know, the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board is one of the most stringiest places to put a fight on. And it's they do a lot, but they do a lot for fighter safety. I mean, you can do a show in PA where it's just physical, eye examine, the trio blood work, but you're going to New Jersey, you're getting a C scan, an EKG, an MRI. So they really do their homework, and they really do background checks on who they license. So yeah, every year I got to submit my tax forms to the state of New Jersey, my ID, and all that. So it is a process. It really is a process. And I still think Jersey is probably one of the toughest places to put on a fight, just because of the medicals it requires. And again, I know they do it for a good reason, but those medicals, if you don't have insurance, can be expensive. So that's a little barrier, Miguel, that with years of you've done matchmaking, There's so much more that goes on in the background that people, that don't see, that there's so
Yeah.
much more putting
I,
on the fight of getting those guys in the cage.
yeah. Now I'll reveal to you, it's a long time ago now, but um, so Jersey, the reason that Jersey is very stringent, and so is Vegas, and certain, if you have gambling in your state, it's the athletic control and gambling control board, and they care
Right.
about both because they're intertwined in some way. So, um, yeah, once they know that you're gambling it, they're looking to see if you spend money on gambling. They're looking to see if you have any other interests, like taking a percentage of the money from the fighters, et cetera, et cetera. So at least that's what they say they should be doing. With Nick Lembo there, I believe at least Nick does that, because those guys are very, very. I believe Nick is probably, you got Dana and the Fertitas pushing it, but there had to be somebody receptive to what they were saying on the side of the boxing commissions. And I think that Nick Lembo was really that very first person that took them in and said, all right, can we work with that? So I have nothing but respect for him. But yeah, they're checking up on you when you submit that. And this is the part that's a little reveal. So remember Vlad, the Euphoria
Yeah.
promoter?
Yeah.
Now this is why his wife was always, front and center at the shows, and she was the official promoter of record, because he couldn't turn over his tax records. He may
Right.
not even have had tax records. So I don't
Yeah.
know what was going on there, but he was always a presence. He was always the guy with the money and managing it, but his wife was the person that did the paperwork there, because
Yeah. And like you said, a lot of
crazy.
and like you said, a lot of the paperwork and application, they ask you really, private questions, and they also ask you, are you connected to any of the casinos? Do you have, any family members employed by a casino? And if they do, they want to know. So yeah, it definitely has the connection of the gambling and the casinos and fighting.
Yeah, so that's your first entry into the world. You go there, you get your licenses up, but at the end of the day, once you get the paperwork done and stuff, now how does that compare to other states? How do you do it, like matchmaking in North Dakota? Do you have to do the same thing there?
Yeah. I mean, I think every state that we deal with, requests, a matchmaker's license, but I think New Jersey does the most with the background checks. Like I think the ones I did for Florida, Pennsylvania, and Mississippi are just like one pagers. Basically just like a one page form. And I think, and this too, Miguel. Some commissions are more lenient to deal with the others. More
Yeah,
there's other commissions that'll maybe let a matchup that wouldn't be like there's certain matchups I know that if I send it to Nick Lembo, you know, he'll shoot it down. And there's other commissions that they're basically like, whatever, two
yeah,
guys agree to fight. I don't care.
yeah, yeah. No, you got to weigh with the good with the bad. But so, what's your experience with some of the other commissions out there, like nowadays? Are there still some that you states that you can't bring the CFFC to because the commission might be a pain in the ass?
No, I mean we've been welcomed everywhere we've gone. Commissions are different. I don't know. You probably know Greg Serb, but Greg Serb is leaving September 29th. I think he's been doing this for over like almost 30 years. So I'm going to miss him. But no, I most of the commissions welcome us. They're a pleasure to deal with. They they're very professional. We're very professional, so it's easy. We've never gotten negative feedback from a commission. So no, I mean commissions. I mean some. I get mad sometimes when I see some of the matchups they approve for other organizations, and I think that's maybe the biggest thing is that my probably my biggest gripe with like Pennsylvania, there can be a guy that's like 10-0, but all his fights are international, and because he's 10-0 pro and he's fought in Russia, PA has nowhere. PA doesn't really have the ability to confirm in Russia, was it a sanctioning body? Who was he fighting in Russia? So they might not grant that 10-0 monster, or pro license. But if I were to put that guy on in Jersey, they wouldn't have any issues because, they would look at a tapology and see, the guy's record. But if he doesn't have an MMA reg ID, which is, used to be the underground and stuff. If they're
Mhm.
not solidified on there with a sanctioned opponent, it can be tough. That's the only hiccup is certain sanctioning bodies won't recognize a fighter who's fought overseas.
Okay. So let's take it back to February of 2011. It's your first show. We used to have a saying when you did a show on the week of the show, at least three things are going to go wrong. So describe your experience and how all that went.
Yeah, so you know, there's so much thing that goes into a fight beforehand, the medicals, paperwork. You have guys getting cold feet. You have guys that swear to God, Arias, Miguel, I'll make 155. Don't worry about it. And then like 2 days before the weigh-ins, you'll get a phone call, and once you see a fighter call you or a manager or a trainer fight week, it's never a good sign. It's never something like, hey, we're on weight early, or hey, we sold more tickets. Can we have more? I mean, that does happen. So I think the only biggest hiccup with that show, I think, was two things, and one happened fight night, and so it was for the better. But we had so there on that card was Anthony D'Agostino, who I love, older gentleman. Um, he was going to fight that night, sold a ton of tickets, and I think a couple days before his fight, his opponent pulls out. And I'm like, great, this guy sold this many tickets. Are we going to be able to get, an opponent? And at the time, the guy he was supposed to fight was Bomb Squad, Ryan Ciatoli. And I didn't know it now, obviously, but Ryan Ciatoli was like, hey, I got a guy it was his guy that pulled out. And they were like, well, his teammate's willing to take the fight. And I was like, well, who's his teammate? And they were like, Jared Gordon. I was like, okay, I don't know anything about Jared Gordon. He's a pro debut too. So he fights Jared Gordon, and it was a pro debut, and obviously Jared's in the UFC now. So that was one hiccup, but it turned out to be great because Jared, who's done all this work for mental health and substance use, started out with Cage Fury. And I think the second thing was we needed two ambulances at the show, and I think we didn't realize it, or one of the ambulance was running late. So I think like one of the fighters got injured, and we had to take one, but we had to wait for the ambulance to come back. So while you're waiting and the fans are just looking and the DJ's playing and you're just waiting for the ambulance, that was kind of nerve wracking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the truth is, the commissions help with a lot of that stuff because
Yeah,
it's like at least the regulation is there for the ambulances and they're monitoring it. And hey, it is what it is.
yeah,
I'll tell you one of those truly crazy stories. I had a fighter no show the weigh-ins. So in the in between time to the next day, I got a replacement fighter to replace him. And they are about to enter the ring. I'm sitting at ringside. The first guy is introduced. Now the replacement fighter, the original guy shows up with his coach. They were local guys in Indiana, which I'm not there from there. So I was sort of
right.
not in charge. And they go to the new fighter. They go, don't worry, we got this. And the original guy comes out, unweighed, on everything.
Wow.
So yes, sometimes boxing commissions can help you out because I believe we were in breach of contract that day.
Yeah, it's hard to pull like late notice stuff like in other commissions like Jersey. I think if you have a fight Friday or Saturday, deadline is Tuesday for
Yeah.
all paperwork. So if a fighter pulls out on Tuesday, then you can't do it while in like PA or Mississippi. If a guy falls out the day before weigh-ins, you can scramble and get what you can. And we've gotten really good contacts out in Jersey where we can get a medical done, we can get blood work done that morning and have it read that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So we've gotten a lot of good partnerships. Doing this for over 100 shows.
Jersey was always really good with that. We had it down to like including the MRI and the CAT scan, about a $300 per fighter head
Yeah,
cost, which
yeah,
just an MRI can be a lot more than that. So
yeah.
at the time they were very accommodating. I have no complaints about Jersey at all. But so let's get back here. Jared Gordon. I was going to bring this up because he looks to be the biggest name on here. Did you get a sense that the guy was going to be something special, or is there somebody I'm
No,
missing on this card?
no idea. So putting together the first few CFFCs were very tough because when I say we, when the previous owners, when they canceled CFFC 6, it left a lot of bad taste in people's mouth. So a lot of people didn't want to fight for us in the beginning, because of we canceled a show. And kind of, Miguel, you've been around this game. If you have a show canceled, it's never a good sign. And I think it's rare for an MMA company to cancel a show and make a comeback. So, like, I mean, listen, I appreciate all those guys who fought for me the first couple of cards I did, but there are a lot of names that, aren't household names that you won't, find out. And, you know, I didn't have, we had to, Rob and I had to really build the brand and build the trust back, for people to come fight for us. And, I went from a place in 2010 where calling gyms and calling everyone like, hey, can you please give, Cage Fury, a second chance or whatever. And now I'm getting Facebook messages from India and Iraq, Kuwait, everywhere, can I come fight for you? So it's a pretty cool place to be, but we put a lot of hard work. And, we've grown into where we're partners with UFC. We're on UFC Fight Pass, and we have a lot of quality fighters that have come through our organization.
No, for sure. That's what I was going to say, is that at some point, you've got the UFC as kind of the bigger show, and then they talk about feeder shows and stuff, but you're a little more than a feeder show. Yeah, your guys go to UFC when they, get to the top of your rankings and that sort of stuff. But after 120 shows, like, there's Northeast people that care about the CFFC, and it's not just, your roster is something people are paying attention to in that area, don't you think?
Yeah, I have a ton of respect for, Lou Negli and Ring of Combat, but I think we are the top promotion in the Northeast. Unless people are telling me what I want to hear, that there are current champions in other organizations that want to come fight for us because they know how much weight a CFFC belt can have. I think most of our champions either go to the UFC or go to a contender. So yeah, I mean, I think we are the premier organization in Northeast. I think people recognize how important our belt is and how we can provide them a platform to not only be seen by a lot of MMA fans, but to reach their goal. And most of these, not everyone's goal is to make it to the UFC, but the higher level guys, they want to make it to the UFC, and we've been fortunate enough to provide that platform so they can get there.
And is it hard? How many lawyers you need to set up this deal with them on Fight Pass that, and then, on top of all of that, cutting the deal on top of then getting the live event, the streaming, and the computer guys, and, the camera guys, everything together? How's the lawyers in?
I mean, there was endless, paperwork in the beginning and getting the deal done. Thankfully, I wasn't a part of those conversations, so I stayed out. But listen, and I don't know if you know this, Miguel, because it's only been recently announced, but we have, Cage Fury FC, which does the MMA. We have Fury Grappling that we do that. And now we're going to be doing in the wintertime, we're going to be doing Match Day, which is like we're going to do collegiate wrestling. So we're going to be producing collegiate wrestling on UFC Fight Pass, and I'm super duper excited about that. So yeah, the lawyers are busy, man, to make sure we cross our T's and dot all our I's to make sure we keep it moving.
Okay, now you're revealing some exciting news there. So by collegiate wrestling, you're not going to be like, all right, we're going to invite Purdue, and you're talking about using the rules of collegiate wrestling with wrestlers that are martial artists. Explain the format. Help me out.
Sure. So it's kind of similar to I don't know if you guys listeners or viewers or you, Miguel. It's like College Game Day that ESPN does. So College Game Day, ESPN will go to like Colorado versus this other college, and they'll hype it up. They'll produce it. That's what we're going to do. So yes, what you said in the beginning is accurate. We're going to go to matches where there's going to be two universities going against each other. We're not doing like we're not having Cage Fury veterans fight each other with NCAA rules. No, we're aggressively going in the winter to all these schools to see matches, quad matches. So they're going to be universities, going off against each other, and we're going to produce it and hopefully give it that college game day feel, and to get people excited about college wrestling. Cause, I think it's the best space, for MMA, and, it's just another aspect of combat sports that, Cage Fury is trying to get into.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think it was Josh Barnett that said, the part of what we do is entertainment, and it's a business, and you gotta be aware of everything else. If you want the best fighters in the world, go to the Olympics, go to amateur wrestling. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that what you are hitting on there is that the level of competition there, I think, should carry the day. Most people should be able to see that and understand it and be like, wow, I agree with you that it's something that needs more attention. That's a great opportunity. I hope you guys can run with that. Well, what's the first school? Do you know what can you reveal something to us there?
I don't want to reveal anything regarding the collegiate wrestling yet, because but I think on our last UFC Fight Pass telecast, Rob teased about it. But it is coming out. We have an aggressive schedule. It's a crazy schedule. But there's going to be some really big, Division One NCAA schools.
Okay, and that's terrific to hear. Okay, now this is supposed to be a history podcast, and there you're revealing hopefully something that's historic. But let's get back to February of 2011. So you said you had to build a brand up. It looks like it was like that cancellation hit hard because it's been 3 years now that the name is kind of dead, and you're bringing it back to life. So that's not an easy job. I can just imagine how hard that was.
Yeah, it was like I said, when I still remember back in the day calling, looking at, CFFC 1 through 5 and contacting those gyms and those fighters who fought for the first 5 shows. And they were like, no, uh, we were supposed to fight at CFFC 6, you guys canceled, we're not doing it. So I think that's, a lot. So I think half of that card, on that is a lot of out of the area guys that, just needed to fight and wanted to fight. So, yeah, man, it was hard, building the trust back of people to trust in Cage Fury and to commit, to a 6-8 week camp and put all this time and energy and not have it, get canceled, really close to the show. Yeah, it was hard work, Miguel. It was super
Well,
duper hard work.
so here's the part. This is the part about matchmaking. I think anybody can say, I want this guy to fight that guy, but the art is making the deal and actually going through with it. So
Yep.
what's your style? So let's say you went back to Jared Gordon, or one of the guys from the fifth show. I'm sorry, not Jared Gordon. Let's leave him out of this. But one of the guys from the fifth show, and they turn you down. 25 shows down the line, you're a success. You may hear from these guys. Did you hold a grudge? Did you bring anybody back later? How does that
No,
work in your world?
no, I think, in this business, Miguel, that, I think you just have to do what's best for business. We doing 100, and like I said, we're on 125. I started at 6, so 119 shows. You can't hold grudges. You can't. You got to do what's best for business, and you're not going to get along with everybody. There's people that I can't stand that I do deals with, regularly, just because, you know it's best for business. I have a totally different style now than what I did back in the day. What I did back in the day was, you had to build up the Rolodex. I was calling every gym. I was, going to, if they were around me locally, I was stopping in and but now, I built up a really good rapport, and I trust the people that I talk to, the high level managers, the high level camps across the country. So my job has gotten a little bit easier, but it hasn't. And what I mean by that is, like when you say, Miguel, it's easy to say, I want to see, Jared Gordon versus Bill Algeo. Everybody wants to see that fight, but is that fighter want to take a risk? Does this fighter want to take a risk? Yeah, I'll fight him, but I won't fight him for that pay. Or maybe I'll fight him, here, or maybe I need to take a fight or two. And I think that's the only negative to, maybe, I love it, but the contenders, the Dana White Contender Series is great, awesome, I love it, but everyone thinks that I'm a fight or two away from that, and if they think they're a fight or two away from that, they're not going to risk, taking a tough fight, or they're on the other hand, there's other fighters that will say, listen, I gotta, and I think this is the best way to do it. I gotta take tough fights on the original scene. Because if you don't take tough fights on the regional scene, then I don't think you'll be able to stay or maintain a career, in the UFC. It's one thing to get there, but it's a whole different thing to make it to the UFC and stay there. So I try to put on the toughest fights I can, and just the most exciting fights I hope that I can produce.
At some point, in this world, though, you do got to, lay down some rules and lay down the law, don't you think? Like, I remember one time, and this is the old days too, just to give people an idea. We had a glove sponsor, and we were giving each fighter the gloves that they could use. But this
Right.
led to problems after, a little while, and the sponsors get tired and stuff. So we did that thing where we would give them the gloves and then collect them again. Like, we'd get the gloves back. And someone stole my gloves. So that person begged and begged to come back on the show, but I knew that they had taken the gloves, and I just couldn't do it. And I could see them buy a ticket and wandering around the building, and they never came up to me to talk to me again because they got scared. But the word was out. Did you ever have like an experience like that where you had to show somebody, hey, look, I am the boss?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a shame too because it happened within the last, I want to say, 5 years. We had this guy that fought for our 135 title, won it, and it was just really just like a disrespectful and like to everyone afterwards. I think he called me fat, and he just like he wanted the whole promotion, like after he won, just to basically kiss his ass and tag him and everything. And it's a process. We take pictures on fight night Saturday or Friday, and then Manny, our photographer, edits them, and it takes a couple of days. And he just wanted, and he just really attacked everyone in our like in when I say everyone, I said the 3 or 4 people that he came in contact with, including me. And it was one of those guys where we never brought back as a champion, and we kind of like erased him from our history. There's no pictures of him, and he did. I think he did go to the UFC right after, and now it's funny that you bring it up because I think he did good in the UFC, maybe like 2-2, or nothing too terrible, and then they let him go, and they just hit me up for him again, and I told them absolutely not. I would never have that guy back. Just like fans don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Some of these fighters don't. Some of these fighters think you need them sometimes more than they need you, and it costs money to put on an event. It costs money to have an event here at this casino. All this stuff costs money, and for you to come to our show and act like a jerk and act like something's owed to you is it's just the wrong way to do it. So, and like I think I was on another podcast, and I said that I think that carries a lot of weight of how you handle yourself during an event. And Rob gets called by Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby all the time, like, hey, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? And Rob is honest. Like, this guy was a pleasure to work with. This guy was an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful of this guy. So yeah, like sometimes you gotta say, hey, like, dude, if you don't want to be here, don't be here. And yeah, you can definitely. I think I burn more bridges with fighters than I do with managers because fighter is just one fighter.
Yeah.
A manager might have 10 guys. And I can't burn bridges with 10 people. But if a fighter, is acting, and we've gotten stuff similar to not maybe stealing gloves, but we know people that through their fans will purchase tickets, and then put a fraud charge on their card, and we know that that person was there, front row, and we've never had that fighter back because that fighter, didn't,
Mhm.
rectify the problem. So
Yeah, that's a new level. I hadn't heard that, but that's terrible. You know what I mean? It's like, and
yeah,
that cuts right to the chase of the whole thing too. That's your income.
yeah.
Man. So that's eye opening. So anyway, so we you get to Jared Gordon. Jared, talk a little bit about Jared, because Jared, he's quiet, but does he have a backstory or what? You know, so
Yeah, his backstory is incredible, and I share it because he's super open about it. He doesn't hide away from it, but Jared is just an awesome guy. Dealt with a lot of addiction issues, mental health issues, and to see where he's come from to what he does now, and he put me in one of the most uncomfortable spots ever. And we joke about it now, but I remember he made weight versus Bill Algeo, and then I think either that night or after weigh-ins or the morning of fights he used again, and was in bad shape, and I didn't find out about how bad of a shape he was in, and he couldn't fight until fight night, and I'm in the back, and this is fight night, and Bill Algeo is warming up, and he's got his gloves on, and I got to tell this guy who's prepping to come out in about a half hour to fight that, hey, your fight's not happening. So yeah, that was a really terrible situation. They later fought, and it was on looking for a fighter, which Dana White attended, and like you said, Jared was super quiet. Dana White told him he was in the UFC, and Jared basically he was like, oh, okay. um
yeah.
so yeah, so like from what he's overcome to where he is now, you just can't feel for the guy, and we'll text each other like every couple months or every couple weeks just to say how you doing, buddy, and he's a great guy.
Yeah. Now I was gonna say you sometimes get personally friendly with the guys. You're a person. You got to like some guys more than others. You know what I mean? And Jared's a guy I think would win people over. So how do you feel? And you're in the business. You know what goes on. How do you feel when you're watching him fight Paddy Pimblett and it goes, what most people think is the wrong way on the judges?
Yeah, so I'm the like I hate watching like our guys fight because it's like I'm super duper biased. I'm rooting for Jared. I think he got hosed on a decision. I was really mad. I think I probably made a stupid post on Facebook that I probably should have taken down. But yeah, it hurts. It hurts to see because I one of my goals, Miguel, early on was I wanted one of our fighters to be a UFC champion, and that recently happened. Aljamain Sterling, fought for us 4 or 5 times, won our 35, and he went on to be the UFC champion. And when he lost against Sean O'Malley, that stung. That stung really bad because I saw Aljamain a couple months prior. We inducted him into our Hall of Fame, which was he was the first one that we inducted. That's another guy that unfortunately for some reason people don't like him and gets a lot of disrespect, but he's another like super duper great guy. And I was there, in person when he beat Cejudo, and for him to get booed in his backyard, that was terrible. So yeah, Miguel, some of these guys are I don't want to say my kids, I'm 44, so I probably could be some of these guys, dads, but I want to see them do well. And just like when I watch my son in a wrestling match and my sons lose, it stings. When I see a Cage Fury veteran fight for the UFC and they lose, it stings because I just want the best for them. So yeah, it stings every time I see Jared Gordon fight and he doesn't come up the winner, and all my other veterans, if they don't come up the winner, it stings.
Now, in the case of Aljamain, it seems like the way he won the belt kind of got him like some, you know,
Yeah,
negative press kind of thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And then I think he's
I
going to
get
do
it.
a good job correcting that because winning the rematch, pretty commit. He was never, in any danger really. So I think he sort of erased that, but I don't think the fans forgave him.
No, no, and listen, no one, and when he won the belt that way, when I say, oh, I had a goal that I want, a CFFC fighter to be a UFC champion. When he won it that way, I was like, man, can we get a champion some other way? Like, and then when he beat Jan, close match, but I thought he won that fight. But when he won it like that, it kind of like vilified or should have validated people's like, oh, is this guy legit or for real? But I could see where fans got mad at him. But if And I'm pretty sure that's most of the, a lot of the fighters. But if you got a chance to talk to Aljo and sit with him, he's a super duper guy and doesn't get the hate. But yeah, the way he won it, I can definitely see, how some people would turn on him, and it's what it is.
Okay, so I had a section set aside and we're into it already. Guys kind of dear to your heart over the years. So we talked about Aljamain. We got Jared Gordon, who's still operating in the UFC. Obviously, with 120 shows, we could talk till morning. But why don't you skim over some of the highlights, like the
Yeah, I
guys that
mean,
have affected you the most?
yeah. So I think one of the guys that affected me the most is a guy named Jonathan Webb. Probably my favorite fighter. Jonathan, I signed him straight from the amateur ranks. He reached out to me, and I was like, hey, let's do it. And I think he was maybe an undefeated amateur, or maybe one loss, and then he came to Cage Fury and he broke every single um, ticket selling record we had, like 200 to 300 tickets he was selling, which obviously a promotion loves. But he was finishing people, and I think he was one of our first guys that, excuse me, that was exclusively CFFC, then UFC. Like, he was our first guy that fought Fight One, Cage Fury, and all of his fights till up to the UFC were Cage Fury. And he made it to the UFC. I think he went 0-2. He went to Australia, lost a decision that he shouldn't have. And I've watched him grow. I watched his kids grow. He's married now. He owns a gym. He's part of, he does the matchmaking for Fury Grappling. When I found out he was going to the UFC, I found out before him. Rob was helping him at the time, and Rob called him to his house, and I was there, and I was there with Jonathan and his wife when Rob told him, he was in the UFC. So that was a super, special moment for me. And Aljamain is dear to my heart. There's a lot of guys that are super dear to my heart. Some are super big guys. Some are local guys like Eddie Torres. You know, the list goes on and on. But those are guys that who I'm very fond of.
So who holds the record for the most fights with under you? Who's the person you've match made the most?
Good question, Miguel. I would have to look. I mean, John's got to be up there. I know Sean Santella's got to be up there. Um, I don't know. Good question. Good question. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, that's cool. That's an interesting one because when you look back at it, I got one for you. Who's the guy who's had the is Aljamain? Who's comparable to Aljamain with the best run in the UFC?
So we have Paul Felder. Paul Felder fought for us a few times. Is now a commentator. I think he's back in the USADA pool. I don't know if that's really, he's coming back, or he's just getting the itch. Who else? Caitlin Chukagan did a really good women's run. God, I'm probably going to get slaughtered for this because I can't remember. But I do think we should have another champion soon, and that's Erin Blanchfield. Erin Blanchfield did her pro debut with us. She just beat, I think, one of the top 3 people in the world, and hopefully she'll get the winner of the title fight this weekend.
And so, talk a little bit about women's fighting too. When did you? I'm looking at the first few CFFCs. No women's fights that have popped up here in the first couple of handfuls. When did you bring that in? And obviously, how do you view dealing with the women different than the men?
So I don't know how it was back in the day when you did it, Miguel, but women are the absolute hardest to match, just because they're so far few and in between. And unfortunately, if they're out there, then there's chances are the opponent that you won for her, they're probably training, because there's no. I mean, it's getting better now, but when I first started, it was women's, and I love women's MMA. I think women, if you go to a fight with 10 fights and there's 9 men and 1 woman fight, that 1 woman fight's probably the fight of the night. I remember watching Tara LaRosa and all the wars she did, and a couple of the fights that you put on. And I love women's MMA, but it's hard. It's so hard because there's not a lot, and you can't. It's hard to build them. You can't. They're guys are all over the place. you can put a 1-0 guy versus a 1-0 or an 0-1 guy, but if you're doing a girl, you might have to have a little bit of disparity between their records just because there's not a lot there. And you know, women are, a commodity. And when you're fighting between LFA, Ring of Combat, Invicta, Combate, you know, Invicta, there's not a lot of women out there. But we recently hired Miranda Granger, who used to be our strawweight champ. She fought in the UFC a few times, and she retired after having her baby. And hopefully she's going to be coming to help build the women's division back up for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And uh, what about a heavyweight? Who's the first
Same
heavyweight
thing.
you think of?
Same thing. Heavyweights are like, very rare. If they're any good, UFC picks them up early. Our current, UFC champion, Greg Velasco, will be competing on a contender series, later on, this year. So I'm excited for that. We've had a pretty good heavyweights come through. I don't know if anyone had I know, he's had a tough run lately because if you're fighting in a UFC heavyweight division, you're fighting nothing but monsters. But Chris Dawkins had a good run. He cut to 205. So yeah, heavyweights are a different animal.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You're the one who mentioned the word commodity. That's popped into my head, because it's like some of the rules you got to. That's part about being a matchmaker. You got to understand the value of some of that, and having heavyweights in
Yeah,
it, and the ladies. You're right too. The ladies are harder to match because I think maybe as a matchmaker, like I found in the early point, the men, all right, now you start knowing the guys and things, and your matchmaking becomes pretty crisp. But with the women, you could have a huge gap in the difference. And,
correct.
that's still the case where it's like if you make a mistake matchmaking, it's going to look bad. And there were many people
Yeah,
that were not fighters, they were just kind of crazy.
yeah, yeah, and yeah. Sometimes that's more so back in the day, but like you would worry about skill level of certain females because the competition one might have faced could have been just a soccer mom trying an amateur fight on a weekend, and it's super tough. Women are super tough, but I think they're great. I love women fights. I think they're probably some of the most exciting.
Now I could back you up too because I remember, we know each other a long time, but we talk every once in a while. But I remember at one point you had I don't know if it went viral or there was a video of you and Cyborg kind of grappling and doing stuff. Why don't you talk about how that came about? Because I thought that was a really cool touch of
Yeah,
like matchmaker with a little personality and stuff. So give
yeah.
yourself some
So
props.
yeah, so when I was younger, in my low 30s, we had this thing called the Garcia Challenge where people would try to submit me, in a minute. I train when I say every now and then, that's every couple of years. I train jujitsu, but I gave it all up. But I went up against, I think Daniel Gracie, tapped me in under a minute. I know Kurt Pellegrino tapped me in under a minute. So it was just like this running, joke, and we would just, it would just be fun. And we did a show. This is probably 2011 or 12, and Cyborg was down here for like a seminar or something, and I put it out there to her contact, like, "Yo, does she want to do the Garcia challenge?" And they were like, "Yeah." And it just so happened this was before she got big too, but Amanda Nunez was training in New Jersey, and Amanda was there, and I think at the time she was fighting Strike Force, maybe. Um, so I think the night before, like I ran into Cyborg, and I think the manager like had no idea, or the manager didn't tell her, so she was pissed. And I told her, and I met her, and I said super nice, and I said, through a translator, I said you don't have to do it tomorrow. Like it was just a joke. If he didn't tell you, like don't worry. Like we just have fun with it. And she looked me dead in my eye, and she was like, I'll be there. And I was like, oh shit. So so the next day, we're in the Cage Fury cage. This is one of the casinos. I think it's Resorts Casino. And I'm sitting there in the cage, and I'm like, "There's no way she's showing up." And sure enough, she showed up, and I lasted more than a minute. I think I lasted 5 minutes. She scooped me up, slammed me, and she's one of the strongest humans I've ever felt. And super gracious, super nice. Cyborg Amanda Nunes was the referee. So that was pretty cool. That was obviously before they years before they fought. It was just a unique experience, and she was so nice, and it was something I'll never forget. It was pretty cool. But I got my ass whooped, and afterwards I felt like I was in a 10-round fight.
Yeah, no, you know, to use a play on words, you got manhandled.
Sure did. I sure did. I think she submitted me with an armbar at the end.
Now, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, me and you are about the same size stature wise.
Yeah.
Average height, average weight. We're just. But how did you stack up with Cyborg? Was she bigger than you? Like, cause I've seen her where she's really
No,
jacked at times.
no, she was bigger than me. Um, and she was just like, very muscular. I think I grabbed the cage and she still picked me up and scooped me away from it. Um, the video is somewhere on Facebook. I gotta find it, but it wasn't too pretty. But I really appreciated that she did it. She didn't have to. At the time, I was a nobody, still a nobody. And she took whatever 20 minutes out of her day to come do that. Behind closed doors in one of our casinos in our cage. It was pretty cool because back this is when she was still big at the time, a big name, and it was so cool to see that.
For sure. Now you say you're nobody. That's not true. Now you've been putting into work. We talked about the early part of the career here. When did you see this thing start to blow up a little bit? Like what? Like I know that at some point that first show out of Jersey, or at some point because you were already the resorts casino's a nice place. You got taking care of the
Yeah.
casino. There's a certain level, so you started off really strong. But at some point, there had to be a jump. When did you feel that jump, that pride from that?
I mean, so there's a couple things I remember. We went from getting a guy in the like we would be ecstatic if we got a guy in the UFC. Now it's like not that we expect it, but we expect that if I put a show on, I'm working on a card now for October 13th in Tampa. I'll be shocked if two or three guys don't go to the UFC from that. But I think the turning point was when we got Fight Pass. When we got Fight Pass, and you know it just opened up because we've been on every type of platform.
You muted yourself.
We were on, paying, time on like CBS, getting a 3 a.m. slot and, you know, infomercial time and doing these little, pay-per-views that, these little streaming services do. But when we got on Fight Pass, it was like, oh, okay. When your partner is the biggest promotion on earth, I think, that gave us something more to be proud of. And, I remember going on Twitter and I would, type in search tags CFFC, whatever that night it was. And it was just really, really awesome to see all these people talking about, our fight because they were watching on UFC Fight Pass, whether it be good or bad, whether it be this fight sucked or who's this guy, they're watching and tuning in. And I think one of my favorite moments ever. I think it was 2021. We did show 100 in Tampa. And it was probably one of the best shows that we could ever possibly ask for. I think 90% finish rate from that show. There was like either 90 or 100%. And, going on Twitter that night and typing in hashtag CFFC 100 just to see all. And I think I screenshotted all of them. And I still will look back on like when I'm having a dark day of guys pulling out and not doing medicals and I feel like quitting, I'll pull that up. And I think that was a turning point for me, Miguel, when we were on that type of streaming service that, not only people, it just opened up to a whole broader audience that would never be able to see us before.
Yeah, to me, I describe it this way: the effect of Fight Pass is basically your crowd before came to see you CFFC. Now people know their fights. They go to Fight Pass, and oh, you happen to be there, so they watch it. But they bring their own a different audience. So you've now multiplied the eyes on you. So there's no way about it. How hard was it to get on Fight Pass? Because you had a good production, you had good buildings and stuff like that. But did they come to you and be like, "Nah, your ring, you got to upgrade your ring, you got to upgrade your lights"? Talk about that whole
No,
process.
yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why, that whole process went super easy is because our production before, UFC Fight Pass was super great. Rob Haydak, super meticulous about the product he puts on there. We just had a really good partnership with our venues. Lighting was extremely great. I think before Fight Pass, we had CM Punk, you know, I'm doing color commentary. So we really cared about our product. And I think it was easy. Obviously, I wasn't at the negotiation table, wasn't at the meetings, but I think it was a really mutual want of each other. Like we wanted to be on UFC Fight Pass. I think the Fight Pass, wanted us because obviously we were sending talent to the UFC. The UFC was, using a lot of our fighters. So I think it was just a real good partnership to begin with. And now they're great. I can't say enough about how great UFC Fight Pass is and the platform they give us. And I think we do really great numbers on there, and I'm just keep it moving.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right on the head. Just it makes a difference when you get there. And you probably, since you said you had the production, so how do you feel? Do you think you're the number one feeder show? Like, I mean, you bought the Northeast. That's got to count for something, right? You think they
Yeah,
look
and
at you as like number one, or you, or is that LFA number one, or
I
you got to be in the mix.
yes, yeah. So I definitely think we're neck and neck with LFA. Um, I remember when UFC Fight Pass, first started with their their splurge of acquiring all this content, and now I think they're more selective. And there's only a couple of us that have been there since like it roughly started. I mean, there were so many shows up and down the Northeast that were on UFC Fight Pass, and now it's gotten very very limited and smaller, which I do believe, which I appreciate because honestly, Miguel, I've watched other shows on UFC Fight Pass, and I honestly can't get through a card, whether it be the talent that's on there, whether it be the production, whether it be the lighting or the commentators. I can rarely make it through a full card because I think I'm just so used to our product. Like I'm not going to be there on North Dakota on this Friday night, but I'm going to be on Fight Pass and I'm going to be texting Rob like, man, this really looks great. But I do think maybe us and LFA or 1A, 1B. I like Ed Suarez. I respect that a lot. I think he does a great show. I think he puts on matchups that are similar to ours, where it's like the no easy fight term, where they're putting up two guys that are tough and not avoiding the tough competition to get to the next level.
All right, as we're gonna wind down a little bit here, but I got so many questions. Did you ever do in 120 shows like a fight where you kind of made a ceremony and like you went, you signed the contract with the guy, because now everything's done by email, internet, and stuff like that. Did you ever do a full out, like, what's the signature? Like, I have Fedor's signature on a contract, dude. I still have that.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I mean that's going back to the Japanese style where everything was a production. I remember, going to Home Depot to fax a contract, and a fighter telling me, they didn't have a computer. So yeah, now everything is all digitized with PandaDoc. I think the last person that I might have like sat, I mean, there's a couple people, local people that who I think are really good that I've gone to their gyms and brought a physical contract and we signed. One of those guys is Greg Velasco, who's our current heavyweight champ that's fighting on Contenders. One was Sean Brady, who, went undefeated for us. And when we signed him out on amateurs, we not did a big thing, but he came to a show, he signed the contract. We took pictures. He's now, I think, top 10 in the world. I think he last lost to Bilal Muhammad. But he's coming back soon. But yeah, man, I kind of, you know, wish we could do some more of that. Like I know we had a really high profile 125 fight. Our last fight and our champion was there. Just to set up a little drama. But yeah, I miss those, style of bringing two guys in and having them sign and you know.
And they still do that in WWE. And if you look at what the UFC and the WWE merger recently announced, that they're
Yeah,
going
I
to be
saw that
kind of,
today.
you know, mixing up things like that. Maybe you could do that at some point again, bring people into the ring at a show to sign a contract for the next show and stuff like that. Because I think that's pretty cool. And like I said, I think matchmaking can be paperwork, it can be that, but I think that if you can do it with a little flair and personality, which you've shown throughout the years and stuff very well,
Yeah.
it's more fun too, don't you think? For the five fighters too.
Yeah, listen, everything's about entertainment, everything is about the show, and I think that's what kind of separates us from others is that when you come to, CFFC, it's like going to an event. There's a DJ there, so yeah, I think that would add another aspect to our production. And I think it also brings some casual fans more into the mix of seeing those type of things.
Yep, yep. All right, brother. We've been going for over an hour. Why don't you? I know you're in North Dakota, but why don't you plug the October show a little bit, the number again, and repeat all that because I know that's the big one
Yeah,
that you're looking at.
yeah. So our schedule for the year is crazy. I don't know when this is airing, but this Friday we're in North Dakota for CFFC 125. Then on October 13th, we are in Tampa for CFFC 126. I just signed a 35 title today, and I'm pretty sure the winner of that, it'll be an injustice if that fighter, the winner, doesn't go to the UFC. November 3rd, we're back at Tunica, Mississippi for CFFC 127. December 15th, we're back in Atlantic City for CFFC 128. And in the midst of all that, we're going to be starting our collegiate wrestling. So, stay tuned for those announcements.
Do you have a date for the wrestling yet?
I do, but can't disclose it.
Okay, but notably, you're talking about rinky-dink shows and stuff like that, and you're far beyond it. This guy just gave you 4 or 5 shows in advance, and that's really the key, kind of the key to the next level of matchmaking that you can do. You got to do it that way in order to stay competitive.
That's right.
So, all right, Brian, I want to thank you very much for the time, and this will probably air the week after the North Dakota show. So, in about a week, people get it out there, and I'm very grateful. Arias Garcia, the matchmaker of CFFC, and a friend of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel.
Yes, sir.